Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com. I'm glad to be able to host everyone for the session all about top myths on AP automation for Dynamics users. Our speakers today are Henry Imes, VP at AvidXchange, and Charlotte Jenkins, also of AvidXchange. It's a pleasure to host them today, and as we get things started, I just want to make a couple notes. We do welcome your questions at any point throughout the event. Please enter them into the Q&A block you should see to the right of the main presentation area, and there will be a couple poll questions, so we want to keep this as interactive a session as possible, so please be on the lookout for those as well in the next little while. So without any further delay, I am going to hand things off to Henry to get us started.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here with Charlotte. My name is Henry Imes, and I'm the Vice President of Product Management here at AvidXchange in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome, everyone. Before I came to Avid, I was the lead architect and analyst and consultant at Paystream Advisors, a research and consulting firm that helped very large companies automate their accounts payable operations. The company was so successful that I decided to sell it about a year ago because AP automation had already happened in the big companies and came over to AvidXchange to help drive accounts payable automation into the mid-market and to the GP audience. Charlotte, tell us about yourself. You've been here a long time.
I have, yes. Thank you, Henry. So my name is Charlotte Jenkins. I've been with AvidXchange for 5 years, and I'm a subject matter expert on AvidXchange AP automation. So my current role as a solutions consultant is to facilitate product demonstrations, participate in discovery sessions just to better understand clients' business objectives, and then work with our product managers to help design those solutions that best meet clients' requirements.
She's much more than that, ladies and gentlemen. As you're going to see, Charlotte is an absolute expert on GP and how it works with our accounts payable solution. But we're not here to talk about that just yet. We're here to talk about defining what is accounts payable automation so you know the truth. Perhaps you've thought about it, but weren't sure if this is for you. And so you're at the right place today. We're going to share some of our experiences, and our title is a little bit pithy, and we would like to make it provocative, but in the end, we're going to give you a lot of insight of what things you might want to think about if you're considering automating your accounts payable at your company. So we're going to talk about the truth. We're going to give a demo. We've got plenty of time for your questions at the end, and it's usually the most lively part of our session, and we'd love to hear from you along the way. So what is accounts payable automation?
Sure.
Can you share with us, Charlotte, how it works and what it is?
So what you see here is life before automation, or life before AvidXchange. So not all of these steps may apply to your specific process, but what I'd like you to take away from this is it can potentially be a very manual and a very timely process. So receiving that invoice maybe in the mail, routing it around for approval, coding it, approving it, maybe checking it against a budget, entering it into your accounting system, mailing a check, and then filing it away. So a lot of steps. I'm out of breath now.
I'm getting tired, yeah. This is the world we know that many of you live in today, and it's the reason you came to the session today, is you're trying to figure out, well, what would it be like after?
Sure. So life after AvidXchange. So anywhere where you see the AvidXchange logo or the gray circles, that is where either software or service is going to step in to help automate that process. Where you don't see it, so the blue circles, are going to be any step in your process today where you will still maintain control, because that is a step that is really critical to your business internally.
Wow. So all these areas that are in gray can be eliminated by AP automation, including the opening the mail and the routing and the approval, but then we're going to leave it for them to check the coding.
Sure. Doesn't mean we don't have some tools to help automate that, but you'll still have that control to review and make sure that it is being coded to the appropriate GL, etc.
All right. Well, let's get into some of the truth about AP automation, but first, we really want to learn from you, the audience. What do you see? And so we're going to do a little poll question here, and Jason's going to bring it up. Which myth is holding you back from automation? And this way, if you tell us which ones of these best fit where you are, Charlotte and I can weave in commentary that helps you better understand where these myths are true or maybe not true. So Charlotte, you've been working with this GP audience for quite a long time and helping, I'm going to say, hundreds of companies through this process. What do you see as most common? What do you think?
Typically, I see a lot of clients think their process is too complex for automation or for any sort of AP automation. Definitely not the case. I've seen clients and worked with clients that have a very simple kind of same approval on every single invoice, every single PO, to having a very different approval based on maybe what's purchased, etc. So all of that can definitely be accommodated within Avid.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to hone in on is we're too small or we're too big or it's going to cost too much. We hope to answer all of those questions for you today. And the control one is always interesting too. Hey, you know what? I need to look. We need to review. I don't trust automation.
I need that paper copy, that hard copy.
And that's just change management, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to do it the same way they've been doing it, just more comfortable. Well, thank you, everyone. It's great to see the results here. Jason, tell us what you see.
Okay, well, hopefully you can see these results as well, but looks like the top two choices are that CFO or controller like signing checks or that AP automation is too expensive. Those are the top two myths, and the next vote getter was our processes are too complex.
Oh, good. Signing checks. So that's a juicy one. We're gonna talk plenty about that, and we're gonna talk about cost, and we're gonna help get you started along the path. So let's start debunking the myth.
Let's do it. So the first one, process is too complex. So I can definitely tell you that is not true. Within AvidXchange, we have, just starting with approval, tons of flexibility on how we set up kind of invoice routing. So based on vendor, maybe a location, a dollar amount. And on top of that, we can set rule-based kind of timers and alerts, making sure that every user is allotted the appropriate amount of time to approve that invoice. Smart coding. I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail in just a minute, but we have some tools that, again, will help auto-populate that coding, start to, kind of remember how you're coding invoices, and then, pre-populate that information for you.
Right. So, for instance, if I get an invoice coming from a specific vendor, let's call it Charlie Supply, I could set up the system so it's going to automatically code it?
Absolutely.
Wow, that saves time. And what if I have a normal approval workflow, say, based on a certain approval workflow based on a certain dollar amount threshold? Could I send the invoice to somebody else?
Absolutely. So we have some, it's called a conditional step. So maybe every time an invoice comes in and it's over 5K, you automatically want your CFO to review it. That's something that we can easily accommodate on our end, kind of have that standard approval for your basic kind of level 1, level 2 approvers. And then the minute that invoice comes in and it's 5K, it's gonna route it to your CFO as a final approver.
Hey, well, I think we have just shown that you've given me enough indication that I think we can bust this one.
I agree.
So let's go on to myth number 2.
Yes, so losing control over your AP process. I'm here to tell you that you can gain more control over your AP process, and specifically what maybe users are able to do. So a specific user can access his or her essentially invoices only for her locations, nothing else. And you can even drill down on each user to determine exactly what they can modify maybe on the invoice. Maybe you don't want them to change any distribution line coding. That's something that you can definitely restrict. On top of it, we have pay control, which again, I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a little bit, but this allows you to essentially, before that payment is executed by AvidXchange, you want another approver on that, just kind of one final sign-off. That can definitely be sent. We have an email that is sent to an approver letting them know their payments that require their approval or their action, and then from there they have the ability to approve it or essentially kind of put it on hold and say they're not ready yet.
Yeah, I think what my clients always like about this process is that It's actually providing them more control because they can review reports to see where invoices are stuck, which invoices might have exceptions,
Exactly.
and spend their time working on those. And, well, after invoices are paid, they can do some tracking of the process. How long did it take? What percentage of invoices were approved within 2 days? Those kinds of things. Well, can we close this one? And call
I
it
think we
busted?
can. Let's bust it.
All right. All right, let's get into the #1 response here. My CFO and controller likes signing checks. Well, of course they do. They're using the check signing process as a way to control cash disbursement because, well, that's frankly the reality. And for all of us who are in and around accounts payable, we know that sometimes we're going to hold checks. We do a pay run, and then we're going to say, well, we need to hold that one because we're waiting for a big payment to come in from a client. That's just cash flow management 101. So they're using the check kind of like a workflow approval process to release funds. Now, here's what we want you to think about. We want you to think about what the controller or CFO really is dreaming about. He doesn't like signing the checks. He's thinking about spending time with his family, doing what, of course, all we want to do outside the office. And here's where it's really fun. The controller and CFO and even the CEO of your company, they're not in the office that much because if they spent that much time in the office, they wouldn't be doing what they do best, which is selling, meeting with your suppliers and customers. They're delivery agents, and we're holding them back, and we're holding back our business process by forcing them to sign a piece of paper. Doesn't it sound kind of antiquated, Charlotte? Isn't that the way you pay your utility bill, by pulling out the paper statement and writing the hand check?
You got it.
No, we don't do it that way. We do it online. And, well, we're going to do that at AvidXchange. Right? We're going to show them how that works at Avid. Cool. So I think we're going to talk about the things that are going to be better. Here's what's better. In a modern automation tool, not only do you approve your invoices, but now you have the ability to approve payments before they go out in the system. So AvidXchange has a tool, and, well, Charlotte gave you an insight. It's called Pay Control, which allows the CFO, controller, or anybody who's releasing payments to review the payments and release them. In other words, just because you've created a pay file and uploaded it to us doesn't mean it's going out. It goes out when you say it goes out. So you get to go through a selector list, submit the payments, just like you would, say, with your online banking.
Henry, quick question. What happens if you have multiple people that need to review that payment?
Oh, well, this is where it gets even better. Because we can, if it's over a certain threshold, we can require that, say it's over 5,000, Charlotte, and the CEO needs to sign that. Just because you sign it doesn't mean it's going to be released. So that's a dual signature control built into the software. So for some of you who may be thinking, hey, you know, I couldn't do dual signature. You can. Even more exciting. AvidXchange uses payee positive pay, which means we are verifying every payee and dollar amount on every invoice that clears the bank. Therefore, there can be no fraud. So more control, even better. Let's bust that one. All righty. So we heard, I think the third most common response, Jason, was we are too big, we're too small for automation. Well, the good news is AvidXchange helps companies of all sizes, and we give you a range here from 100 invoices or payments a month up to 30,000. We have customers that are paying more than 50,000 invoices a month. AvidXchange is processing well over 1 million invoices a month, but we do it with hand care for our over 5,000 clients. So there are no, one client who makes up all of our book. It's a widely dispersed thing. The only thing is, well, 99% of them are here in the U.S. And even more than that, all of our people are here in the U.S. We don't outsource any of this. In this day and age, that's a weird thing. So I think President Trump would like that, right? We're not sending it offshore. We're doing it all here with domestic folks. In fact, a lot of the people that do the data entry are working remotely in their homes. We've figured out a distributed workforce model that works really well for how we key in the invoices. So now it's all different for everybody, and there really is no one perfect size for automation. The perfect size is when you are ready, and when you think you're ready to take advantage of getting rid of this albatross around your neck to enable your people in your department to do the jobs that they can do best, which is, we know 40% of the time, Charlotte, is data entry in accounts payable today, but the innovators of our clients eliminating that 40% of time and allocating those staffers to do more analytical jobs. So I'm going to bust this one because really there is no too small or too big.
Absolutely not.
Especially at AvidXchange. Okay, well here's some stats that you can look at. Now I'm sharing this slide because it's time for you guys to think about the benefits that you folks on the phone that you can gain from this on your own. You can listen to the experts talk, but until you start thinking about this for your own yourself. So I'm gonna text off in the chat window this link to our ROI calculator. This is going to help you understand personally at your company how much money you can save. Now, the folks that use this tell me they love it because it allows them to create the business case in their organization. One of the challenges that we know is that a lot of people look at AP automation. In fact, I bet you everyone on the phone, Charlotte, has thought about this, well, at least like 5 or maybe 100 times. And it's just like, when is the company going to get around to this? Oh, Joe, the CFO, he's just kind of not really going to do it. Well, maybe he hasn't been presented the business case. And so this is an opportunity for you to create the business case. We have this tool at our website. You can print out the results and use this to make the case to present it to the curmudgeon. Whether you have 2,000 invoices, and let's take a look. This is what the output looks like when you go in, and this takes about 10 minutes. You type in your invoice volume, and it spits out these little charts for you so you can show where the savings come from. It's pretty cool.
Definitely is, yeah.
All right, now here's the big one. We can't afford it. No way it's going to cost too much. So is AP automation too expensive? Well, I don't know. Let's take a look. All right. So when I was the lead analyst and consultant at PayStream Advisors, we had done literally well over 1,000 different surveys over the 15 years that I ran the company. And consistently, our average manual invoice processing cost was running between $9 and $12. Now, it started to come down in the last 5 years. Guess what? Why? The big companies had automated and driven it down to like $2.
Oh, that's great.
Or even $1.75. And so we saw the trend moving down. Now, many of you on the phone might be saying, well, how could it possibly really be $9? It turns out that it's the cost of the exceptions. Entering an invoice, we can do that pretty quick, right? Might take me a couple of minutes tops to get in one invoice. But it's the problem children, right?
Right. Entering that invoice in twice by accident.
Yeah, or the errors that we make. And so we know that from studying this for a lot of years in benchmarking, the exceptions invoices run between 12 and 20%, depends on your company. And that means that it's generally 4 times as costly for your time to work on it. I got to make phone calls. I got to emails. I got to follow up. I got the little red folder to follow up on the invoice that I can't post because blah, blah, blah. So that's what drives it up. It's the average, probably pretty cheap. Here's the good news. And this is the high end of our pricing. This is for the smallest customers. $1.15 invoice, 68 cents a payment. Wow. Some people, our clients, when they see this, are like, how is it possible that you can do it? Well, when you're processing millions of invoices, this is how you do it with scale. And it's a highly automated process that we have. So we've been able to deliver this cheaply, inexpensively, and simply. It's probably the most simple thing to think about. This is not complicated. It's not going to be contracts. And Charlotte, how long does it take to implement the typical client at AvidXchange?
We have a 45-day guarantee to have you up and running and live within 45 days. And if so, we'll even give you a portion of that implementation cost back. So really, I've done implementations that were kind of 2-day, all-day working sessions. I had a client live by day 3. And then I've had some that, again, we do use that 45 to maybe 50, 60 at the high number, the high implementation time.
Depending on the complexity of their internal process, change management.
Absolutely.
But the file integration, that's not the big complexity, right? It's a lot about the business change.
It is. So the first part of implementation, what I always like to call it, was process learning and kind of doing kind of current state and future state. So really having a couple of working sessions learning what does your process look like today, what are areas that you want to improve upon, enhance, and modify. And then sometimes where it maybe does get hung up is if you're wanting to change approvals, maybe get permission internally to do that. But really, yeah, a lot of just current state, future state, mapping that out.
Well, I think we can bust this one. Certainly, you can make a business case pretty easily to your boss, leadership, if you can just say, hey, it's costing us this, here's the savings we're going to get. So I'm going to bust this one. Well, I think it's, we've gotten everybody excited about what this might look like. So let's take a look at the end-to-end automation. What does it look like?
Sure. So what you see here are how invoices get into the AvidXchange platform. So a variety of methods that you see at the top: email, paper, UScan, EDI, API, and a customized portal. Regardless of that method, it's all going to be funneled into one location, and that's your AvidXchange portal. From there, ideally, we're receiving those directly from your vendors. AvidXchange will then extract the header level data, and by header level I mean the vendor, the invoice number, amount, location, etc. And then submit that to AvidInvoice, which will kickstart an approval on that invoice. So based on predetermined logic and rules and routing and conditions, all of that, that invoice is going to know exactly where to go and who needs to receive that kind of step 1 to approve it.
So I got invoices coming into my physical, they're being mailed in. What do we do with those?
Great question. So AvidXchange will actually notify your vendors on your behalf to tell them to now submit those invoices, ideally to AvidXchange directly. If you do receive that still, maybe at your individual locations or at kind of your corporate office, you always have the ability to email that directly to AvidXchange as well, or come in and upload it.
Wow, okay. So how long does it take to get through the process?
So AvidXchange has a 24-hour SLA at the service level agreement to get that invoice into the AvidXchange platform. I can tell you firsthand that it rarely takes 24 hours. I've seen invoices be emailed, and within an hour, we already have turned that around and submitted it for approval.
Wow. So fast turnaround. We guarantee that it'll be done in 24 hours. So as soon as the email comes in, boom, posted. Wow. And now we're going to show you how it gets into the system. So it's with AvidXchange. We're going to give a demonstration, right?
Sure.
Let's take a look at how the solution works. Charlotte, walk us through it.
Okay. So what you see here is the AvidXchange logon page. So I'm not sure if you know this or not, but it is SaaS-based. So nothing to install, maintain, kind of download on your end. As long as you can access the internet, you can access AvidXchange.
So it's in the cloud, kind of like Amazon.
You've got it, yep. Another thing is the system is going to optimize or adapt based on what device you're on. So regardless of whether you're on your desktop, a tablet, a cell phone, the system, the screen is, like I said, just going to optimize to that. So no app is needed. All right, so what you see here is the My Invoices Pending Approval queue. So once the user's logged into the application, the approval queue is going to tell that individual what invoices are waiting for them to approve. From here, you see you have easy access to all pertinent data, so the vendor ID, the name, the amount, etc. Based on a user preference, we can even set up customized kind of invoice notifications, letting them know that there are invoices that require action to come in here and approve them.
Could I do that on my mobile phone?
You've got it, yes. As long as you can access the internet, you can get to AvidXchange. So if I am responsible for coding the invoice, it was as simple as clicking on that invoice number to bring up the invoice detailed screen. We have some smart coding tools that will help populate that. So one of them was a default GL. So based on a vendor, regardless of what that location is, it will always code it to that one GL code. We'll go ahead and fill that out for you. We have another one which takes it kind of a step further and will remember all of those distribution lines, any unique descriptions, and then apply the same percentages for every invoice. What you see here is the invoice workflow, so being able to see exactly where in the process this invoice is, what actions required, and then the steps to come. So like I said, a lot of specific conditions can be built on our end to make sure the right people are reviewing this invoice. So maybe it's based on department, maybe it's based on the goods that are purchased. All of that can be accommodated. A lot of flexibility here.
Cool. So, I have this term that we used to use at PayStream Advisors called desk float. And that's when the invoices are received by Billy Bob, and let's say in South Carolina, and it's it's hunting season. Billy Bob went out, and he's out of the office for, a week. So it's sitting on his desk. We wouldn't know that, right? We'd be waiting in accounts payable for Billy Bob to come back. So what you're showing me here is I can actually see where the invoices are, right?
You've got it. And on that note, Billy Bob can set a proxy approver to take over his invoices while he's out of the office. So that would allow you maybe for him to send them over to myself, and I will be, for that 1 week while he's hunting, approving his invoices.
Got it. And it's going to be temporary.
You've got it. You set the start date and end date there.
Cool.
Okay, so invoice history. This is my favorite feature probably in the entire system. The invoice history is a complete audit trail of everything that's occurred with this invoice from the time of creation all the way throughout the approval process. Anything that is modified or changed, then the user that did that with that date and time stamp. So no more having to guesswork or chase invoices. You have the ability again to come in here and look and see what was changed, why it was changed, and when it was changed. And the best part is it's all reportable.
Wow. Now I see we're showing here Dynamics GP. I think we have some folks on the phone who are using other Microsoft Dynamics products. Does this also work with them?
Absolutely. So this is on the AvidXchange invoice side. So regardless of what accounting system you're on, what version, you will have this audit trail in AvidXchange.
Wow, cool.
All right. Lastly, we have the ability to run a search for invoices in the system based on multiple criteria. From here, you can come in and run that custom report to pull the invoice image, the history that you just saw, the distribution lines, essentially, any of this information you see here, you can pull. And the best part is the user can only pull these invoices and run this report for the specific locations that they're tied to in the system.
Right, so if I'm a manager in store 5, I can just see my stuff.
You've got it, yep.
Terrific.
And then from there, create that custom report. So export that information. Here I've shown exporting it in a PDF format. But what I've seen a lot happen in the past is maybe AP is running these reports internally from their accounting system and then mailing or emailing them out to different individuals that don't have access to the accounting system to run reports. Invoice search is a great way to empower your end users to be able to do that kind of independently going forward.
Right, so give them access to our system, and then, as we may not have pointed out before, because our software is not charged by user, they can add as many users as you want, and they can run their own reports at no additional cost.
Absolutely.
Right, so we can give the store manager 5 access to go and do his own stuff.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, he's the one who's controlling the budget, so he wants to look at the invoice.
And lastly, the process of invoice batching. So once that invoice is fully coded and approved, the next step is to then send that over to your accounting system to create an open payable. So with this, it's a pretty simple process. You'll create a batch, add those invoices to it, and then depending on the specific accounting system and the integration, essentially you're going to push that information over to that platform, like I said, to create an open payable.
Okay.
All right, so next we're going to go into specifically our integration with Microsoft GP. So in here, what you'll see is within one click, you can import that batch or import those invoices into GP. It's as simple as selecting that date range and then hitting the import button. From there, you can double-click a batch to view the invoice details, preview them, also view the invoice image for each invoice, and then from there, once the invoice is imported, you can click on the invoice to view that transaction in GP. So here you'll see the payable screen. So all of the information, all that coding, the notes that was entered in the AvidXchange platform is seamlessly transferred over to Great Plains. Like I said, it is a seamless transfer, it is a seamless integration that allows you then to come into GP and kind of work out of those native screens that you work in every day, and from there have that information kind of just adding value and adding visibility into where those payables are.
Mm-hmm. I just think about the power that you've just given me. If I'm the AP manager, now I'm not burdened with waiting for my staff or for our team to enter them in. Now, within hours, they're already in the system and ready to go. And
got it.
Maybe we don't even need to look at it as AP. We're just going to quick review and off they go.
On that note, let's talk about the AvidXchange payment application. So AvidPay is a full-service offering which includes essentially software for you and your team to control payment and payment approval. So we touched on this a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. So we also provide a service component to help reduce those manual tasks that Henry was talking about that take up a lot of your accounting staff's time. So from here, within AvidPay, we can easily process a payment batch, or your team or the client will upload a payment batch from your accounting system when you're ready for Avid to initiate that process. From here, we can facilitate 100% of your AP payments. You'll even see a payment dashboard. So once that payment is approved, AvidXchange will step in to execute on that payment to your vendors. After sending that payment to the AvidPay network, you can view the payment batch to see status, payment methods, updated in real time. So 100% visibility into your payments.
Well, no, wait a minute. So I'm not going to print my checks out and we're not going to mail them anymore?
You don't have to. So you'll always have the ability, for rush requests or, maybe any kind of unique payments, you always have that ability to cut those locally or in-house. But ideally, AvidXchange definitely wants to help you facilitate 100% electronic payments.
Right. So you're saying we're going to send out the checks for them and make electronic payments to the suppliers. Not have to worry about it.
You've got it.
Sounds good.
Let AvidXchange do that heavy lifting. So here, payment approval. So one thing we talked about earlier is an important step in a lot of clients' process is approval. So maybe what happens if that person's out of the office, or based on a certain dollar amount, we have to have multiple approvals or approvers. Our payment approval workflow is extremely easy to configure and to build out based on those unique requirements. What you'll see here is I have a conditional step so that every time a payment comes in over that dollar amount, I believe it's 500, it's going to go to a specific individual. And then I also have, kind of as a step one, regardless of the payment amount, I need, user ABC to review that payment.
All right, and so here's this, I guess we're going to share how the approver who's logged into this screen is going to release the payments, right?
Sure. So what you see here is all of that payment information, all of those details, the bank account, check number, payment date, the vendor, amount, etc., all here easily able to be viewed for that approver. They can then drill down into specific invoices associated with that payment and then click on that invoice number, which will then pull up an image of that invoice from AvidXchange.
Got it. So let's say we have a CEO, Dave, and he's a kind of control freak, and he's the one who really likes to sign all the checks, right?
Yes.
So
Dave's going to be very happy.
Dave's going to be happy, right? Because he's going to be at home at his son's basketball game or out at the beach where he was dreaming, and he can go in and look at what the pay run looks like and release these one at a time.
Sure, or maybe he wants to put it on hold. Yeah, so same thing. You have the ability to approve that invoice, you can log a comment with it, or place that on hold if you need maybe a little bit more detail or verification on something.
Great. Dave's going to be real happy when he goes to the beach this summer. He doesn't have to worry about signing those checks before he leaves.
That's what we like to hear.
So this is a drill in here example, right? I wanted to see the actual invoice related to that payment. Wow, cool. What happens next?
So back on that invoice record, you'll see we have visibility into that payment information. So again, maybe control, wanting to lock down what users can do and kind of access in the AvidXchange platform, you can do that. So even if a user doesn't have access to the AvidPay module, they can look at that invoice record and still see those payment details.
Wow. All right, so let's review a little bit what we saw. We're starting to get ready to take the questions that have been coming in if you're thinking of now we've shown you a lot of goodies.
We have, yes.
So we want you to ask questions and apply it to your specific situation. You have the experts here, and you can ask us. We'd like to just point out a couple of things. Now, when the payment goes out, we actually we give you a file that posts back to GP so you can see all those payments, and it looks like we actually use your payment sequencing number. That's part of the implementation process. So you would see all the payments that we've made in sequence number in your system as well, not just in AvidXchange. We give you a file back. Alrighty, so let's review. What did we see today? Well, let's see.
Sure,
Charlotte, you talked about the invoice process.
We did. So we saw kind of before and after automation. We talked about invoice capture. So it's receiving that invoice in a variety of methods, extracting that header detail, and then delivering it or kind of submitting it to AvidInvoice, which will kickstart an approval. From there, we talked about some of the smart coding tools we have to help pre-populate the distribution lines. Workflow routing, again, all those different conditions, logic that we can build, a lot of flexibility there to accommodate each client's specific process, and then the history, that complete audit trail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then we talked about Microsoft GP and our embedded integration on the AvidInvoice side, complete API to transfer that invoice and all of those details over into GP with one click. And then also showed you how you can view that invoice image within GP. So you can use that native kind of functionality in screens to view your bills.
Cool. And then we talked about my favorite part. So I don't want to have to sign the checks anymore. So we're going to send the payments to the Avid network. That's an optional feature, but most of our clients use this. Then you have the payment dashboard, the pay control, and Avid. Oh, we didn't talk about Avid making the payment remittance. So AvidXchange, one of the, I guess the probably most popular part of the payment network is that we send notifications to the suppliers so they can post their books. Whether they're getting a check, they'll get the paper check, but they get the e-payment faster because the day the payment is made, we send an email out to the supplier with the rich remittance details so that they can load their accounts receivable and clear off the invoice. I guess Charlotte also showed the payment details that you could see them in the invoice record. You could drill in. So lots of cool stuff. So you don't have to write checks anymore. We don't have to process invoices anymore. What are we going to do with all that time?
Hopefully put it to better use.
Yeah, I know there's some analysis the controller wants us to do on margins. Alrighty, Jason, it's back to you. We're going to have an audience poll. We want to hear from you folks. We hope that we've piqued your interest. If you're interested to learn more, we certainly want to get a brochure out to you, or we want to have Charlotte or one of the team members give you a demo. And if you're just researching now, we understand that too. So we're going to let you tell us what's important to you, and soon we're going to be getting to your questions. We got a bunch coming in, so let's take a look at some of the questions that have come in already.
All right, and do you want me to start picking from those, Henry?
Yes, please.
All right, so yeah, if you have not asked your question yet, please do fill it in now. We'll add it to the queue that's forming. So maybe one that we should take first, 'cause I know you did touch on it before, but how does the solution integrate with other Dynamics products?
That is a great question. So let's take Exapter, Nav, or Solomon. It is a simple file export from AvidXchange and then import into those different accounting systems. On our side, we will essentially kind of build a mapping or build an integration to accommodate your specific requirements to make sure all data from AvidXchange is being transferred to the appropriate fields in your various accounting systems. And that's actually the process for a lot of accounting systems. Again, a simple file download from Avid with all of those invoices, all of the detail, the distribution lines, the descriptions, etc., and then import that information into your accounting system to create an open payable.
Okay, we have an interesting question here about exceptions. Someone writes, we have a lot of exceptions, pricing discrepancies, receiving discrepancies. How does AvidXchange handle exceptions?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we love exceptions because we make them easier for you. There's a couple of different ways that it can work. It depends on how you implement the system, but we can screen items when they're coming in to say, hey, this item is missing certain coding information that needs to be fixed, and stop it in accounts payable. Another exception process could be to say, route this invoice over to the specific department manager for using based on, say, the vendor. All those vendors belong to that department manager. Exception handling is kind of the lifeblood of what we're really doing at AvidXchange by simplifying. Charlotte, do you want to add some comments?
Yeah, just touching on kind of the very first step when AvidXchange receives your invoices. We have a handful of, I'll call them queues, different rules, different analysis reasons based on the individual exception. So one of them is a duplicate check. So it automatically looks to see if an invoice was previously submitted for that vendor with the same invoice number. And if the answer is yes, it's automatically going to throw that invoice to a duplicate queue. That way, helping make sure that you don't, at the end of the day, cut any double payments.
The other exception tools that you have is access to over 30 different reports that we've developed to manage things like exception by vendor, exception by department, so you can start tracking where the errors are coming from, and perhaps for the first time start really drilling in on solving the reasons for the exceptions.
Yes.
So what's the root cause, right? And this is what Charlotte was talking about early on, is we'd like to understand what the problem is during the implementation process so that we can design the solution that's going to solve the problems for you and give you an answer that's going to make it expedient, not just for accounts payable, but frankly for everyone who works in the organization. We're just the one piece of it. The department managers don't like to work on exceptions either, nor the vendors don't either. And we know what they do when they get exceptions.
Right. I know I don't like working on exceptions.
Phone call. They're going to call you. They're going to email and say, hey, where's my invoice? We aren't being paid on time. Which I'm going to add another component of exception. AvidXchange has developed a supplier portal. We call it the Cash Flow Manager, which allows suppliers to log in and see the status of invoices in our system. So they can actually see the status of your invoices in GP and without having to call the AP department. So pretty exciting stuff there. Soon we're going to be adding the ability for the suppliers to upload invoices into that portal and find out, get notifications when the invoices are approved.
So another question we have is, what are some of those standard reports? We have, like Henry was saying, we have tons of reports. Just touching on a few of my favorites, looking at the approval time by each user. So seeing maybe there's an individual end user or approver that's really holding up your entire process, and getting that invoice again back over to your accounting system and then a payment sent out to the vendor. We also have some that are specific on the kind of the overall, the major milestones in your approval process. What are the holdups during that? So looking all the way from the invoice being received to the entire invoice coding and approving, and then the pay control. So if you do have an approval there, looking at the entire lifetime of that invoice and seeing what's taking the most time.
Why does it take time? What steps maybe you want to re-engineer, do something different? Great questions, audience. Keep them coming.
Another one I think, Henry, you might be able to help with is, how does the positive pay work?
Right. Oh, positive pay is one of my favorite features. Prior to being a consultant, I was a banker. And there's two kinds of positive pay. One's positive pay and positive payee. And basically, all of the checks that we write go out on AvidXchange's bank accounts. So we have the ability to share the payee. So let's say we're paying Mike's Supply. Check fraud has started to be a real issue, and companies can steal, people can steal checks out of the mail and change the payee name from Mike's Supply to Mike Johnson and deposit it to their account. They can also change the dollar amount. They could change it from $1,000 to $10,000 by lifting the ink off of the check and changing and adding a zero and a dot.
Oh, wow.
Positive pay and positive payee makes it so that when those checks clear our bank, we will stop the checks and say, nope, that is not the dollar amount that was written, or no, that is not the payee written. That's what positive pay and positive payee is.
Great. Another question I see here is, would this work for AX or just GP? And just to kind of reiterate that, yeah, I have personally done a handful of AX implementations. So yes, this will work. Like I said, it's going to be file download and upload into AX or SL or NAV.
Navision, yeah, the former Navision product. Yeah, we work with the entire Microsoft family, and let me just reiterate, we have hundreds of Microsoft accounts that have been active in our system for a long time. AvidXchange has been around for 15 years, and we have almost 900 employees right now. This is not a small company down the street.
Any other questions?
I do see a question on three-way match.
Great question. So currently today, we have it is a two-way match in our system, but we are working on essentially building out our PO product to handle three-way match. So handle all the way from receiving, matching that back, the invoice back to the receipt, and then back to the PO. So that is something that is on our product roadmap. And I don't know if you want to talk about...
Yeah, I do. Actually, the way our clients who need three-way match are working the system, they're using the match functionality in GP. So we're giving you the ability to match. We give the lines. You can flip the lines in our system and then do the receiving of quantity in GP. So you're using your normal receiving function in GP. We're giving you the line items that you need to post to post the bill to the system.
Any other questions?
So I'm seeing a question, if 3 signatures are required for an invoice, can that be a possibility in using the software?
Absolutely. So a lot of flexibility on both the payment approval and the invoice approval. You can build essentially those out as 3 unique individual steps that would require every single time all 3 of those users to essentially virtually approve that or sign off on it.
Or set a dollar threshold, and the vacation rules apply as well for delegation?
Absolutely, yes. So based on user access and their permissions, they would be able to essentially step in and be a proxy on behalf of somebody to approve their invoices while they're out of the office.
All right, I am not seeing any other questions at this point. We can make a final call as we start to wrap up here. I want to remind folks we do have a very brief survey that you'll see pop up as you depart today, and any feedback you can give on your experience would be welcome. I know our speakers always appreciate it, and we always appreciate to hear what your experience was as an attendee at the event. We did record today's event. We'll be sharing details on that very soon as well. And just want to say first to Charlotte and to Henry, thank you so much for taking the time to present today. This was a really fun session.
Thank you. We enjoyed being here.
Thank you. Yes, and we have a number of different tools on our website and tips and tricks that you can read about. We've got a couple more questions we're going to take, but you can also do some self-service research on our site with a lot of details, more about how the solutions work for you. So let's drill in on our next question. We've got Charlotte here for the next couple of minutes.
First one I see is, what information does the vendor need to submit for this to work as a smooth process? So during implementation, so again, kind of that very first step of it, or kind of stage of it, which I said is process learning, it's also data collection. So you'll have a dedicated team on our side that will guide you through that entire setup, configuring your preferences, and then also making sure that we have on our end all of that vendor information to set up in the AvidXchange platform. So essentially through some canned reports in your accounting system, we can export those vendor details and then set them up in Avid. Taking it a step further, when it comes to the payment side, or just even before that, the invoice submission, that's where we will notify your vendors on your behalf, and only the vendors that you essentially say approved to contact, letting them know where to submit invoices going forward. And then on the payment side, we have a dedicated team, so that's where the service aspect comes into play, to reach out to your vendors, determine what their preferred payment method is, and make sure that when we do execute on those payments, it is in the exact format that they prefer.
Mm-hmm. Also, it would be remiss to not mention that some of our clients receive incentives from the electronic payment conversion. So we call it a rebate. So sometimes you can convert your suppliers to electronic payments and actually achieve a benefit. All righty. We got another question about how does the AvidXchange system provide increased visibility to our cash flow? Well, we really like that because in essence, any kind of tool that around AP automation is providing you better visibility to what's the accrual, what invoices are coming up to be paid, right? So today, using that desk float in a paper-based world, invoices are floating around your organization. You don't know when they're coming in or when they're due. Today, within hours of the invoice being received, you can now start accruing for it and managing it. So, for instance, some of my controller clients will log in on Friday afternoon to see all the invoices that came in this week, to look at what are we going to have to pay, and they build their cash forecast 30 days out from what came in the prior week, because they know that they're going to have to pay those if they're going to keep true their net 30. So it's giving them visibility to what the liabilities will be based on their different payment cycles of their vendors. Did I hit on that payment visibility, you think?
I think so, absolutely, yeah. Based on just kind of the accrual, a couple of things I can touch on is, again, we have a number of reports that are centered around this specifically, so being able to see kind of all outstanding invoices, where they are in the approval process, what the amount is, who the vendor is, et cetera. So again, just giving you more visibility into what's to come. That's a great question. Any other questions?
I am not seeing any others at this time. We can give it just another few seconds if you'd like.
Well, Melody has been giving us a lot of great, and Ursula, so thanks guys for weighing in. We hope we've answered your questions. Please reach out for more if you want to have a more detailed demo. We'd be delighted to take you through it and tailor it to your specific requirements.
So I do see one more question here asking how many users can use the software at one time from one organization?
Great question. So unlimited user access on our side. Each user will have their own unique logon credentials, which will drive, tying back to permission, exactly what they can see, what invoices they're receiving, and then what actions they can perform on those. So I have had clients that have anywhere from 10 users all the way to hundreds of users, maybe 200-300 users.
Right, and this is a cloud application, so it doesn't sit on your server. All of that is managed by our wonderful engineering staff who manage this application. So it's 99.9999 uptime and ready for approval at any time. As Charlotte mentioned, we have some clients who have literally thousands of users using the system, and some that are just have 10 or 3. Thank you, Ursula. All right, Jason.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, we can wrap it up there. I know, obviously, people can reach out with any additional questions. So thanks once again to everyone on the line for all the great questions, and obviously Henry and Charlotte as well. Nice job, as always, and hope to see you back soon.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to... All right, and with that, we will wrap up today's event. Have a great day, everybody.